coming up today, we're harvesting and freezing kale.
And never go to the garden without a measuring device again. We'll show you how to do it. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is sponsored in part by, for all your non-GMO, organic, and heirloom vegetable, flowers, and herb seeds, visit dollarseed.com. Sioux Growing Supply, located in Wausau, Wisconsin, focusing on certified leaf compost, an excellent amendment for poor soil, retains moisture and adds nutrients, which equals less watering. Available in Labor Saver pre-filled trays and pots, bag and bulk. Visit SiouxCompost.com. Organic fertilizer for the health-conscious organic home gardener. Family owned and operated. Visit thewiveggardeners.com. Don't poison your soil with municipal water. Attach a body, mind, and soil hose filter. Free shipping exclusively through the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Just click on the body, mind, and soil icon. Authentic Haven brand soil conditioner for the home gardener. Easy to brew. Visit ManureTea.com. No measuring, no thinking. Stamp it, plant it, stop plotting, start planting. GardenStamp.com.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Holly Baird. Today we are harvesting some kale here, and we actually have a couple beds of kale, and kale's real easy to grow and harvest. Now this bed, they lack a little bit of nutrients, but we're building our soil back up, so as we do that, you know, it's going to be kind of a growing process. And the bed next to us here, it has a little bit more promising color there. So basically, just to harvest the kale, you just want to snip, you know, if you want to harvest the whole head, you just snip it at the base there. If maybe you just want a few leaves, you can go ahead and just, you know, cut those off as you need them. I'm just going to cut the yellow ones off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and show you how to freeze it for long-term storage, so that you can use it throughout the year for cooking or whatever you want to use it for. So I'm going to get these harvested here. So we've harvested our kale now. We're getting ready to go ahead and freeze it. So when you're ready to freeze it, what you want to do is you want to make sure you inspect the leaves, get them wiped down, and then make sure there's no insects or little bugs from the garden. And then it's pretty simple. You just want to remove the leaves from the thicker portion of the stalk. Once you get up to the thinner portion, that's okay. So some people have success just going like this and pulling it straight back. If it's a bigger stalk like that, that may not work as well for you. And then at that point, you can either chop it to your desired length or size, or you can just, depending what you're going to use it for, I'm probably just going to use mine in smoothies, so I'm just going to leave it like that because I'm going to put it in the blender anyway, or the food processor. So what you're going to do is you're going to just do that to all of your kale, and then you want to make sure that you don't use this light-colored, discolored stuff. It's not good for freezing. It's not very hardy for freezing. So just go ahead and toss that in your compost pile or find another use for it. I'm going to get these finished here, and then I'm going to go ahead and get to the stove so I can start the other process. Blanching is really simple. Many people don't realize necessarily what blanching is, but I'll show you. What you do is you take your vegetables, and some people call this parboiling. So what you do is you simply just take your vegetables, you're going to put them in boiling water. Then each vegetable usually has a time for how long it should be blanched for or parboiled for. In this case, these greens here, these kale greens, are 2 minutes. So once you're done with them in the water for the 2 minutes, then you're simply just going to go ahead and you're going to put them into an ice bath to stop the cooking process. So that's simply what blanching is. Okay, so when you're blanching kale, you only want to blanch it for 2 minutes. And you don't want to over blanch it or overcook it, whatever you want to call it, because then that's going to make for some not so good greens. So what you do is you just simply add them to your pot, push them down into the water. You can cover them, you don't have to. And then you just watch the time, and then once your 2 minutes is up, then you just go ahead and throw them into the ice water. So let's get that done here. Okay, so our 2 minutes is up, so you just go ahead and you scoop your greens out and you put them into your ice water bath. It's pretty simple. This will stop the cooking process and it will do the part of the blanching. And at this point, once you get a substantial amount, you want to go ahead and you want to put them into Ziploc bags, zip top bags, freezer bags. You can even use some of those vacuum seal bags. If you don't have that vacuum seal, that's okay too. The zip top bags work just fine. You just want to make sure you buy the freezer kind to ensure that you have prevent yourself from getting freezer burned greens. And they store in the regular zip top bags for 9 months, and the other bags, the freezer vacuum bags, for a year. They're not going to go bad necessarily, they're just not going to taste as good. So I'm going to get some more of these done and I'll get them bagged up here. Okay, so now we're going to bag it up. It's pretty straightforward. You just want to get it into your bag. And I'm just going to do basically what I think is kind of a serving size at a time, or a couple servings. And then I have this stuff sitting here, so I'm just going to go ahead, transfer over, finish the process, get the air pushed out of this as much as possible, get it labeled, and then you want to go ahead and get it into the freezer as soon as you get that done.
If you're much like us and enjoy growing all year round, and then also enjoy growing indoors, the challenges that sometimes that may face, you can take some of the vegetables you're currently growing in your garden as fall is reaching its early to mid state and propagate some of these so you can begin getting them and getting a jump start in the indoor growing. What I'm talking about is, one of the big ones is tomatoes. Now I can take, and I've got a multitude of different varieties. We're going to take 4 different cuttings from tomatoes, put them in water, and then let them build roots, and then we can put them in our cocoa core growing medium that's under grow lights, and we can try to grow tomatoes, which we did successfully last year over the winter months when it's much too cold outside. So what I'm first going to start with is this yellow plum. These are very juicy, very nice cherry tomato types of a variety here. So I've got it, I've got all my, and this is the key point of labeling these when you plant it. I've got my label here, so this is the yellow plum here. Now what I'm going to do is, on each one of these varieties, I'm going to take 2 cuttings off the plant. Now when you're taking cuttings off the plant for propagation, for indoor growing, you want to make sure there's no discoloration in the leaves. You want to make sure the leaves are healthy, the plant looks good. Obviously there's some blight at the bottom, but that's not going to affect the top portions of the tomato plant here. I've got some flowers here that I'm just going to cut off because they're not going to produce right now anyway. So I'm going to go down and cut at an angle. I've got one sucker here. This is one of the few times you'll see us cut the sucker off. I want to cut the bottom leaf off, and I'm going to cut that leaf off there. Now that will all go into water. Now there's fibrous little hairs that will instantly begin to turn into roots when this gets established. Now one of the things you want to put this in is just regular rain water. You don't want to use municipal water. It has chlorine. It can affect the health of the plant as it's beginning to build roots. You can use city water if you allow it to set for 24 hours to allow that chlorine to evaporate off. Well water, ours has a very high level of iron in it, which causes the leaves to begin to discolor. So rainwater is the best solution right now to get these roots established. I'm going to take the marker, I'm going to take 2 cuttings here, I'm going to place in the glass jar, and then over a 2 or 3 week period we begin to see the roots emerge on the bottom of this.
And the one thing is, you might get a little bit too much liquid in there, so you can just take a spoon and back it out. It's not going to hurt anything. And then also, let me just measure this real quick. Once you measure for your headspace, you want to get the air bubbles out. And the easiest thing I've discovered is that if you take one of these wooden skewers that you can buy for making like kebabs or whatever on the grill, if you just take it and run it along the outside of the jar, it'll slide in there real nice, and it'll just get rid of the air bubbles, just so that you get a better seal.
As the gardening season winds down, we can reflect on the growing season and figure out what things we can do to help us be more productive and work less but get more done type of mindset for next year. One thing is spacing your plants. Sometimes this can be a difficult task. You got to get your tape measure out or your yardstick if you're not planting in the square foot method with the garden stamp. So here's one thing you can do as you're putting your tools away. You can actually draw on the handles of the tools and make markings on it. For example, we've got this shovel here. Now, we had tried a couple of different ideals of marking. In years past, we would measured the shovel height here, the actual blade portion here, and drew lines. So if we were digging a hole, we knew, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 6 inches, etc. The only problem with that is the permanent marker wore off very, very quickly. Now, if you wanted to go another step with that, you could take and mark it, and then take a knife or some form of a marking or a grinder and cut into the metal, which that's not really that good of an ideal. So what you can do is you can use the handle here. Instead of taking the tape measure and you got to measure out your seedlings every 3 inches or whatever, you can draw basically measuring. You can take your tape measure and basically draw onto the handle. Now, one thing I was thinking on this is you rub your hand up and down while you're digging, and this can be for your hoe, your rake, whatever your device is you're using, and it will wear off eventually. So we're going to try using some packing tape, and we'll get into that portion here in a minute. But I really don't want to measure from one end all the way to the other end, because it's really, you use your hand on the top, that's going to wear out quite a bit, and you use your hand on the bottom, and that markings are going to wear out quite a bit. So what I decided to do here would be take a center portion of this, about 20 inches or so here. Let's just do that. Got a permanent marker. I'm going to mark 1 there and 20 here, and I'm just going to mark every inch roughly, and then I'm going to draw the numbers on there, and then that's how we're going to identify it with the ruler here. And that way, whenever you're planting, you can just simply lay the handle down of the item that you are using, and it will greatly increase the speed and the accuracy of the item that you are planting, whether it be bush beans or pole beans or tomatoes or whatever the case is. All right, so this would be 1, 2, 3, and on. And this way you can not have to worry about spacing, because you already have the device or the measuring device that you need here. So I'll get all of these marked. Now you can do the whole handle. That's purely up to you. It's purely up to your decision if you want to. But again, you're going to rub your hand up and down on this. So that's why I left the top foot here and the bottom 8 inches. Now, so we've got markings here, 1 through 20, 1 inch through 1 to 20 inches here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take packing tape, it's clear tape, and we're going to cover this. And what this will do will protect. You could also probably polyurethane this if you wanted to. But now that will protect that markings, so whenever you're using the shovel, whether you're right hand or left hand, and you rub your hand up and down of it, you're not going to rub the markings off, and you're always going to have that on your shovel or your hoe or whatever device you have. You're planting, you can throw it down, you can put your seeds every 2 inches, move it down more, and you've always have a measuring device with you in the garden. Thanks for watching, and join us again next time for more organic gardening and food preserving. I'm Joy Baird. This has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.